Hello.
Hello there.
Oh,
Hi, everyone.
all right.
Like we're
Packed house
crowd
today. Yeah. Mary, are you on
Well-
this call or just your record? Oh, there you are. I see your library.
Well, just judging by the amount of inquiries on the different channels in Slack, this expansion thing is becoming the number one issue that is on everybody's mind.
Yes, it is.
And I'm kind of saying, finally.
Yeah, it's nice. I've been doing expansion for a while and it's great to get to hear from more people. So thank you, Eran, for talking today. Mary, can I make you co-host? I have been in back-to-back meetings and really need to go to the restroom. Someone else needs to be able to admit people. I'm sitting here like,
Go ahead.
let me find you. There you are. Oh shoot. Trying. It's not working because there's people popping in every time. All right. Okie doke. I will be back in a moment. And if everyone wants to chit chat for another minute and then we could get started.
Yeah. Hi, Rachel. Hi, Eran. It's Leslie. Hi, guys. Before we get started, I was just kind of curious if anybody could share kind of like their struggles in the area and maybe why they joined today. So we can kind of go over everybody's topics. Not like I'm taking over this call or anything, but I was just kind of curious, like have people have been doing the expansion plays that they can do and they're just looking for like more ideas or stuff like that.
Well, I know Eran's on today to talk about ABM and expansion, so I think that's one of the topics. But everybody else jump in or put your questions in the chat and I'll make sure that Rachel has them when she gets back.
Yeah, and I'll just also add that my plan was to go over some ideas for maybe about half of the call, or maybe even less if I can squeeze it in, and then open it up for discussion. And I know some people had specific use cases and scenarios that they wanted to run through, so then open it up to discussion. But I'm happy to just get started with some of my thoughts about how we can use ABM for expansion, and then as we go through it, get more into specific use cases.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Well, I'm back. Thanks, Mary. All right. Well, I'm Rachel. I put together these monthly meetings on expansion. I love to see that it's growing in popularity. And then thank you again, Eran, for coming on today to talk to us about customer ABM marketing and growing accounts through an ABM approach. So I'll let you take over. I'm going to hit record if I can find it. There it is. All right, and I will go on mute and over to you, Eran. Thank you.
Okay, so first of all, thanks, Rachel, for inviting me to do this, and thanks everyone for joining. So I'm gonna try to run through these ideas quickly, as I said, just so we have more time for discussion and exchange of ideas. But I'm gonna try to pack a lot into it, so bear with me. But also stop me at any point, just holler, because I'm not gonna be looking at the chat. So just ask a question if I'm missing something and you want to interrupt me. But I'm going to try to go through, a lot through it, and we'll get right to it. So I'm going to start right off the bat with the one secret that I can share with you from my experience. I've been doing ABM for over 20 years now, before it was called ABM. And if there is one secret that I can share with you, is that you shouldn't let a three-letter acronym intimidate you. Basically, ABM, you already all know everything that you need to know about ABM. So it's just a matter of applying what you already know into a specific framework. The way I look at it, ABM in a nutshell, it's marketing, right? I mean, what is marketing? Is understanding who we're targeting, what is our value proposition for them, and then just coming up with the mechanisms to get these messages to them. That's all what ABM is about. So I'm going to try to break it down into some tangible ways that I've been doing ABM, and then get specifically into some examples of how I've used it for expansion, and share some of those examples. So when I look at ABM, as I said, there are these three key elements of every account-based marketing program. And eventually, you want to lay it out in some sort of a program orchestration framework. And that's the framework that I use. And as you can see, it starts with the audience. Then we have the messages. We create content to deliver the messages. We set it up in campaigns. We let it go. We add more channels. And then obviously, we measure and we optimize. That's what it's all about. Now, if we talk about the audience, and that's our starting point, we first of all need to understand what kind of expansion we're talking about. So when we talk about expansions, there are different scenarios. It could be that we're selling the same product to a new team within an existing customer account. It could be that we're selling it to the same team, but we're trying to upgrade them to a higher price tier. It could be that we have a new product and we're trying to sell it either to the same team or to new teams within our account. So multiple ways of looking at expansion, and each one of them has its own specific way of how we would go about it. And the one tool that I use to kind of map it all out and start understanding better who the audience is and who are we going to target is this white space analysis. And it can take different shapes or forms. If you have just a single product, then maybe just the customers and then the different teams or the different use cases that you have for the product, and understanding for each one of your accounts where your product is already being used and where you have this white space, which is the opportunity for expansion. And then if you have multiple products and maybe even multiple tiers for each or some of these products, then this white space analysis looks a little bit more complex or more layered. So you can understand how maybe in some cases you have an opportunity to sell a new product. In other cases, maybe you have an opportunity to upgrade the product to a higher tier and higher pricing, and any combination of this. But in my mind, this is the basic of understanding how we actually go about expanding and who we are targeting here. So why is it important? Because in each one of these different scenarios, we have a slightly different way of how we would position it and how we would go about it and what becomes important in the expansion play. So obviously, if it's the same product, but it's a new team, then essentially we have to start from the very beginning. I don't care if they're an existing customer or not, you still have to show value. So the question is the new team that you're trying to sell to, is it a good match with your ideal customer profile? And if so, what is the value proposition that you have for this team? You have to be able to, we have to be able to answer these questions if we want to do any expansion play. So if you see basically the common theme that we have in all these different permutations here is ideal customer profile and value proposition. If we understand these two things, everything else is just execution. So to do this, I have different frameworks or different templates that I use, but at the end of the day, it goes back to marketing basics. And that's why I started with this one secret. And I said, you already know how to do this because you are a marketer. So you understand that these are the questions you need to be able to answer. Who is it that you're selling to? Who are the personas? What do they care about? What are their metrics for success? How you can help them? How you're different from other solutions that they may be looking at? And what kind of proof points do you have? If you're able to fill this slide for any of these scenarios that we talked about, any of your expansion plays, you're good to go. This is just another template, basically getting a little bit more into the details. But again, obviously for each persona, we want to understand what their priorities are, their KPIs, their pain points, and how we help them. So I just threw it in there just as another example. But if we get into an example, a real example of how you'd apply to expansion, this is, let's say that you're selling some sort of a collaboration tool. Let's say, something like Monday.com or Asana or any similar tool. And let's say that your current team that is using your product is the marketing team. So you have different value propositions for them. Obviously, you can help them get projects done on time. You can help them increase team productivity. But the outcomes of it is that they can get projects also done on budget and that they eventually are able to generate more leads. So this is the value proposition for your existing users. Now, let's say that you're trying to take this solution and say, well, customer deployment can also use this tool. Let's also sell it to them. So we find the right person, we find the contact information for them, and we go to them, and we have some elements of the value proposition that are going to be similar, right? I mean, they also want to get their projects done on time. They also want to increase team productivity, but they maybe care less about budget because it's a different way of accounting for customer deployment teams. So what is really important to them is that they can make their customers happier because they have a better way of managing the product. And then basically the outcome of it is that customer maybe comes on board quicker, you accelerate time to revenue. So understanding these nuances and making sure that we have a good understanding of what is the value that we deliver in the expansion play is, in my mind, the key. And if there is nothing else that we take out of this conversation, in my mind, this is the most important thing.
Eran?
Yes.
Erwin Hipsman said that he finds that when talking, wait a minute. Oh, when talking, hold on, sorry. He had asked that you go back to another slide, so I'm just trying to find that. Erwin, you want to hop in and share what you're saying because he can't see the chat at the same time.
Hey, Eran, yeah, go back to an earlier slide. Keep on going, one more back. One more, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, here.
This one?
This is where I think there's a little bit of alignment or confusion in that, when I sit with peers and when I just read things. People use the word upsell, cross-sell almost interchangeably, and they're clearly not. So I think it'd be helpful to, and then if it's upsell, it sort of in my world, what I said in the comment is that, that's really a sales motion. We don't need to get too deeply involved in upsells because they know who needs to buy more of the same thing, et cetera. Whereas a cross-sell is much more of a partnership, almost like a new deal, much more of a partnership between marketing and sales. In these 4 boxes, which would you call upsell and which would you call cross-sell?
That's a great question, and one that I specifically try to avoid because as you said, different people use different terminology. So I try to say, I don't care how you call it. At the end of the day, you need to understand which one of these boxes you fall into. And then that will determine what are the questions that you need to answer. So some people will call it cross-sell, some people will call it upsell, some people will call it new sale. To your other point about whether it's a customer marketing motion or demand gen motion, I would also say that depends on every organization has their different way of slicing it. And it could very well be that, for example, this box, new product, new team, would not fall under marketing, customer marketing, and would be a completely, something that would be completely something that demand gen would drive. That can definitely be the case. I know that in some instances where I've been involved in it, we basically had this territory of new product, new team for existing account. We had this as something that was negotiable between customer marketing and demand gen, and we decided on a case-by-case basis who would address this type of motion. But I completely agree that not all of it necessarily would fall under customer marketing in all organizations at all times.
Okay.
But thanks for the question, because yes, I'm sure other people are asking it as well. Okay, so going back to how we structure our programs. So the additional layer on top of everything that we mentioned so far is that, when we look at all the possibilities and everything that we can do, we probably don't have enough resources to do everything that we want. So now the question becomes of how we actually balance scale and personalization. And this is where I like to use this framework of one-to-many, one-to-few, and one-to-one, and understand where it makes sense to create programs or create campaigns that apply to our entire expansion target versus where it makes sense to segment it and slice it into more specific segments or even work on one specific account. And obviously, the more strategic and important the account is, the more resources we may be able to allocate to it to do one-to-one work. I would say that in my experience, the majority of the work that I've done as customer marketing falls into this one-to-few layer. The one-to-many, again, you might say that market context and thought leadership and all these kind of things actually don't belong to customer marketing, and you're probably correct. The one thing that I would urge here is to understand that when we talk about thought leadership or when we talk about the overall messaging, expansion messaging is not necessarily the same as demand generation messaging. So the content that your marketing team or your content team is producing for thought leadership may not be the right one for you to actually drive this groundswell towards or lay the ground for an expansion motion. I would highly recommend reading the expansion sale book. I think it has some very good understanding, or it helps you understand how expansion messaging is different, and how you want to maybe take your demand generation content and slightly tweak it so it is more applicable for expansion plays. And Eran, I know you're an expert on this, and you did a nice webinar with Tim on this topic. So, but again, highly recommended. Okay, so let me now maybe go through one example and kind of show how I've used these different elements that we talked about. So this one example that I'm going to talk about is where we had a new product that was complementary to the one that our customers were already using. However, it required new teams to actually use the product. Although we had overlapping economic buyer, and in some cases they were the same, and in some cases they were not. So the first thing that we talked about is how we do the segmentation and how we look at the different accounts and the different personas. And essentially what we did here is we first of all started by making sure that we had that the accounts that we're targeting match the ideal customer profile. So in this case, what it meant is that we only targeted customers that had the supported integrations for this new product. So if they didn't have the systems that we were able to integrate with, we essentially excluded them for this expansion play for that time. And then basically we looked at the adoption profile. So we had some of the existing customers that already had maybe a trial or some early adopter version of the new product. And with these, our goal was to increase utilization, which basically meant that we would get more revenues out of it. And then we had those that have not signed up for the new product yet. And obviously our goal there was to sign them up. And then we had another layer of segmentation, which was basically our strategic accounts versus all others. In terms of buyer personas, we had, as I said, we had a new operational buyer. Basically, the people who were leading these teams were new. They were not our existing users, although some of the C-level buyers were the same. So what we did is, first of all, we created these messages and content to support the campaign, the expansion campaign. So we started with the market trends and why act now. We created, we surveyed the existing customers that were the early adopters, and we analyzed what kind of ROI they were getting on their use of the new product. And then we shared this as a proof point for our campaign. We also created material on how to overcome objections, because obviously every new product or every new team that is trying to use the product, they have to go through some sort of a change management process. So what are some of the best practices from the early adopters that we could share? And we had video interviews and webinars to support that kind of messaging. And then we also created a change management playbook that we could share with the product champions, and obviously whatever other social proof that we had from our early adopters. So that was basically the content that was used in this expansion campaign. And then in terms of program setup, we started with email sequences, and we created separate sequences for each one of these cohorts that I mentioned. So one for the early adopters and one for the laggards. There were 6 emails that were sent every other week, and we did it over 2 quarters. So basically, we had a total of 12 emails to each one of these cohorts using these different content elements that I showed before. We layered on top of the emails, we layered additional ways of reaching to these customers and getting the other teams involved. So we created a template for the customer success managers for them to send follow-up messages to their accounts. We also created templates or emails in outreach for the SDRs to follow up on those that engage with the content. And we were planning on actually doing LinkedIn ads. We ended up not doing them, but that was another part of the initial program.
Hey, Eran.
Yep.
What were the tools or platforms that you used to orchestrate all this?
Yeah, I have the tools here. Basically, the email sequences were created in Marketo. The CSM templates were created in Mixmax, and the SDR follow-up emails were created in Outreach. All the data was synchronized to Salesforce. But if you're asking if there was one system that helped us orchestrate all of it, I would say no. And I'll talk a little bit more about systems and tech stack as we get to the end of my slides here, my deck here. But if that's the question, then the answer is nothing. Did that answer your question, Scott? Yeah.
Sorry, thought you were done there.
It leads to a follow-up question, but I don't want to get into just like if you looked at Engagio or anything like that, and
No, I'll talk more about these in a minute. So hold your next follow-up.
Yeah, that's what I figured. No problem.
Okay, thanks.
And will you be sharing the slide deck?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to know. Thank you.
Yeah, I share everything. Okay, so the other part, as I mentioned, is we did, on top of everything else that we did some very customized work on some of the strategic accounts where we actually tag teams with the CSMs and in some cases with the account executive as well. And we essentially took it up a notch with them. So we created, if I mentioned the change management guide that we did. So for these specific accounts, we actually went and we customized them. So it actually referenced their specific process and their specific systems that they were converting from, and basically made it very specific and targeted so they could share it with their own users. We also interviewed some of the early users that they had in those accounts, if they had any, and basically we created templates based on how they were using the product. And then we shared these templates within their peers. So, these are things that they could have done on their own, but to be honest, they didn't have the bandwidth. They just didn't do it. It wasn't a top priority for them. We felt that it was in our best interest to actually get them to this point where they could have these templates, they could have these playbooks, they could understand how to best transition from the old way to the new way using our solution. So with these strategic accounts, it was worthwhile the investment to take it to the next level and make these very customized content pieces. We also participated in some events that they created. So, for example, some of them had their annual kickoff. We were invited to participate in these and present our new solution in these annual kickoffs and use it as a platform to essentially launch or increase the expansion within these accounts. So just to kind of summarize, basically, the three sort of like layers that we use here is that we first of all made sure that we were only targeting accounts that were a good match for these expansion plans. So we use this as a filter. Then we looked at the adoption profile of early adopters versus laggards, and we use this to customize the messaging. And then we looked at the account profile, and we looked at strategic versus others, and we used this to customize how we were structuring the program with them. And that's, again, in a nutshell, sort of like what ABM is about. It's about slicing and dicing the target, coming up with the right messages, and then figuring out what is the program mechanism that would best get to this audience and get the messages to them. So, the results that we had good engagement. We were able to increase adoption, and then basically there was a reduction in workforce, and everything stopped. So not the happiest ending to the story, but I think still there is a lot to be learned from the process that we went through. And I think that if we had the opportunity to bring it to conclusion, we would have probably seen much more impressive results and better outcomes. So with this, I'm kind of coming to the end of what I wanted to share here. And I know there are some questions, and Scott already asked one of them. And so one of the questions that people ask when I talk about ABM is, what about intent? So if you look out there and you look at all the ABM vendors, basically what they promote is their ability to identify intent and use it to launch ABM campaigns. I would say that that's one thing that you don't need to worry about to start with. If you know your customers and you understand the value proposition and you know who they are, you don't need to another system to tell you whether they have the intent to purchase or not. You can just go and target them with the knowledge that you have. Now, I would say if you have in your organization something like a Sixth Sense or a demand base or other system that gives you some intent data, or if you know, for example, what web pages they visited on your website, all these kind of things, you can use them as input for your segmentation. That's absolutely fine. But I would say if you don't have it and you don't use the system, just don't worry about it, at least not at this stage. The other part is, the tech stack question that Scott asked, and what kind of system you have to support it. That's another thing that I think, at least when you get started with ABM, just don't worry about it. Figure out what is your process, how you get results, and then figure out what is the best technology to support it and scale it. But starting with the technology is usually the best. Is usually not the best way to get started with ABM. That's at least my take on this. Now, I would say that if you're looking at technology, beyond the different tools that I mentioned before, like you need a tool to send emails, right? You need this data to sync to your CRM. So I'm not saying that you don't need to use technology at all, but if there is one thing that I would say you want to look at eventually is one place where you can track all the data from your ABM programs. And if there is a system that allows you to do it, whether it's customizing your existing system or whether it's a new system that you're going to put in place, whatever it is, if you are able to track the progress of these ABM campaigns as you put them to market, that would be the technology that I would invest in. And then the last question of demand generation versus customer marketing, I already addressed it earlier, but yeah, the boundaries are going to be different um, in each company, within each organization. As long as you talk about it and you figure out who is doing what, you'll come up with a good solution. So the last thing I would say, and this is the end of my presentation here. Obviously, it's important to measure, and whether you have a system to do it or whether you just do it in a Google sheet, you know, you still have to measure. And the kind of things that you measure in the ABM are maybe a little bit different. So I'll talk a little bit about it. The first thing that I look when I look at ABM is account coverage. So if we have defined our target accounts, how many of these do we have in our system? How many of the personas we have we can reach, whether it's through email, LinkedIn, phone, whatever way we're reaching out to them. So that's the first measure. First of all, we have to be able to actually reach all of these different customers. The second thing is the engagement. And when I look at engagement, I look at only engagement from relevant personas, relevant accounts. So if we're doing a campaign and we're getting some responses that are irrelevant, basically we just don't count them. And then as we look at them, it's important to start segmenting them and understanding where you're actually getting better response, so you can optimize and improve the engagement with the segments where maybe you're not performing as well. So, for example, what is the response rate by persona, company size, seniority, territory? You can come up with whatever cuts of the data makes sense for you, but I do encourage you to look at all these different cuts because you never know where you might be missing something unless you look at the data. And the beautiful thing is that once you set it up, you just feed the data into it and you can always look at it. I even go in some cases a step deeper into it. So if we do, for example, email messaging or other types of messaging, and we use different types of keywords, if you do it long enough and you have enough data, you can actually start seeing different keywords that perform better than others. And you'd actually be surprised to see how the differences can be significant where you use specific phrases in your messaging or not. So those are the kind of things that I typically measure when I look at these ABM campaigns. Obviously, the ultimate measure is what you have at the top here, which is influencing revenues and influencing expansion opportunities. Depending on sales cycles, depending on other factors, these might not be immediate things that you can see. So the engagement metrics will give you some leading indicators, but obviously over time we want to be able to show that we are actually impacting revenues.
Hi, Eran. Sorry. There's a couple questions in chat, which has been just crazy today. I haven't seen so many people actually in chat. Hari Krishna, he says, how do you measure account and persona coverage?
Yeah. So account and persona coverage are very simple. It's basically, you have to have an understanding of what is the total market that you're addressing here. Since we're talking about expansion, it is essentially your customer universe. And specifically the customer universe that you're targeting for this expansion campaign, which we talked about, the one that match your ideal customer profile. So let's say that you have 1,000 customers, that 800 of them, have whatever the criteria is to make them ideal for your new product expansion. This is your total universe. If in your database you only have contact information for 500 accounts that you can reach through your campaign, that means that you're only covering less than 60% of your account target here. So the goal is obviously you need to have 100% of them or close to it. And again, since they're your existing customers, there is no reason not to have close to 100% account coverage. So the challenge is always, when you're trying to reach new buyers and new teams, and you may not have the contact information for them, but again, with some legwork, it's something that should be pretty easy to do.
Thank you. And just because it's a popular topic over here in chat, do you find that a lot of companies have pretty messy data? And how do you handle that? My own thought is take what you can get and, try to fill in what holes you can, but you might have a more professional way to approach that.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm sure other people have ideas as well, so feel free to jump. But my approach is, yes, start with what you have, but make data a priority and put the resources into it and make sure that you have a good database to work from. That is the foundation. Again, if you're missing 30% of the people that you should be targeting here, you're already starting with only 70% of your potential. So that's the easiest way to actually increase your success for a campaign or an ABM program.
Yeah, that just goes along with my idea of, working with community and advocacy. I found that importing what I can from Salesforce and then adding my own information and data into my own kind of CRM, whether that's a spreadsheet, which it has been in the past. Right now I'm working on using Airtable because it can automate that import, but it just makes it so much easier to have some control over that data, which I've also been in organizations where they don't allow you, if you're in customer marketing, to have edit access and things like that. So that's helped me. But I definitely agree with you that data is so important, and there's so many pieces of data that we don't always think to track or pay attention to. So yeah, I'm just thinking out loud with you, but I really appreciate you sharing all of this with us today. And Rachel's here too. I'm not taking over as host.
That's fine. I'm just listening. Yeah, I think we all track our data manually, but really, if you do take the time to do that, you can typically leverage that after a certain time period by using it to show the discrepancies or show what data is missing or opportunities to make your case to get the resources you need to help build internally. But even at my organization, where we have a large focus on customer marketing, there's still so many things on the data side for demand gen, and that's getting first priority. So I'm on the back burner for now, but I'm used to it at this point. So I got my spreadsheets.
We can be scrappy if needed.
Yeah, it's a great skill to have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my approach was, let's be scrappy, show some results, and then ask for resources. And in terms of the data, there are also some tools and vendors that can help with this. Clearbit, Revenue Base, other tools that you can use to enrich account data, find the right personas. There are ways to scale it, but skunk work also works.
Does anybody have any more questions? Or did everyone put them in the chat already?
I've not seen a chat like this. This is just crazy. I think it's awesome, but there's a lot in there that's great. It's obviously a very important topic for the community and people in customer marketing.
I know there were some people that mentioned that they have specific challenges or projects for expansion right now, and I wonder if anybody is willing to share what they're working on, what they're challenged with, and see if the team here or the group here can help with any ideas.
I can jump in. This is Sheetal. I think I've met some of you before. We are actually in the process of planning a pilot for our enterprise and mid-market AM team, our account management team, and we're in the outline process of our plans, but I would love any feedback or ideas from the team. I think in the chat, I just said data is our biggest pain point. So that's the part where, we're struggling, but from a tactical perspective, the way that we are approaching this is we're going to start off with a small team of folks in our EMEA region and North America region and prioritize our priority 1 customers, which are essentially high value accounts that are pretty much engaged, but what we're trying to achieve is getting ahead of them going from a very engaged customer to all of a sudden churning. So we're trying to get ahead of that by an ABM strategy. So in terms of actual plays, so we do have 6sense as our account-based marketing platform. So and we use HubSpot for our marketing automation. And then I know Leslie's on here, but we also are a Sendoso customer. So we are blessed with a lot of great tools. It's just trying to, get the support from sales and then also the reporting piece. So as an outline play, we will be segmenting our list and using 6sense to trigger notifications to our sales team. And then from a marketing perspective, we are going to leverage LinkedIn if we have enough volume of accounts, which we're thinking we may not. But from an engage and delight perspective for customers, I think we're thinking about a gifting play with Sendoso, and then also doing kind of a private Zoom for our high accounts. So it's more of a coffee chat, get on a call with some of our executives. It's essentially a Zoom meeting, so you don't have to worry about producing anything fancy, no slides, with on a specific topic. So having folks come and join that and just really engaging with them, answering their questions, talking about some of their challenges and pain points right now. Obviously, budget and tech consolidation is a pain point for our customers, and we're trying to get ahead of that and really show the value of our solutions. Unfortunately, we're not going to be prioritized to get custom content made for customer marketing. So we do have to leverage some of the demand gen content. So that's kind of another struggle. But I think where we can get customized is with creating, custom landing page plays, some of the experiential type of events like a coffee chat, and then of course gifting. So that's at a very high level. We are considering doing another tier of customers that are more at risk, that haven't shown engagement or adoption of the product. But we actually don't really know how to get in front of them because the AM and CS teams are already having trouble getting ahead of them. or getting in front of these customers. So if anyone has any like creative ideas that they want to send, please let me know. Sabrina, one of my colleagues, is on the call. So Sabrina, if I left anything out, please feel free to pop in.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Great to meet you all. Yeah, as Sheetal said, we're just really working through the process now and trying to leverage the tools that we have in place to the best of our ability. So we're working on onboarding 6sense and trying to maximize capabilities there. So if anyone has any tips and tricks on tying in 6sense and Doso outreach all together and have worked some sort of play out with that, any tips and tricks would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, I'll contact you guys both on a Sendoso level and then the CMA Soulmate level, where I'm going to be putting together like an ebook on account-based customer marketing with all of our customer plays using all of our integrations. So it's going to be fire, and I'll definitely let you know what top plays our other customers are doing.
That'd be amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah. That'd be great. Yeah, and I think with the data and the reporting piece, a lot of it is getting buy-in from leadership on what the KPIs and metrics are. Obviously, everyone knows that, but we have been starting to leverage the 6sense buying stages where we're seeing accounts moving from more of an awareness or less engaged stage to more of a purchase and decision. But yeah, I think if anyone has any other ideas or any thoughts on the best way to report out on success outside of just pipeline, which is obviously what we're all striving for, yeah, would love to connect.
Yeah, it's a chapter in the ebook. It's chapter 7. And so I mean, I can do what I can do, but I definitely am going to leverage the minds and intelligence of all of our more sophisticated customers for everyone.
Nice.
My kid has a bucket on his head going, I can't see you. Okay, bud.
I've been there, Leslie. I've been there.
Wait, I gotta show this.
Take pictures. Oh, no more bucket.
Damn it. Too late. Anyway.
Leslie, what ebook are you talking about?
Oh, stop it. Trying to make me tell everybody my secrets.
Yes,
yes. I know. So, yeah, I got the bug again. The bug to create. So after my career framework, I was like, well, where do I go from here? And then, yeah, I was like, okay, think about what another level of experience that you have. And since I started my advocacy career at Engagio, and by the way, I fall in love with these companies that I work for, and I start bleeding whatever color they are, right? Like right now I'm bleeding orange for Sendoso, but at the time I was bleeding ABM because I just completely fell in love with it. And so I've been working with account-based marketers for so long. And then now I'm a marketer who markets to account-based marketers. So I'm living the dream over here. And then all of our Sendoso plays around it and everything that I've done, I was like, well, I think it's time. So working on the title, but I think it's going to be either a customer marketer's guide to ABM or just coining the term account-based customer marketing for everyone, and then just walking everybody through the things that I know we need, right? Which I put in the chat, how do you do it with budget? How do you do it with no budget? What are how do you really get started? Okay. I know there's all of these crazy tools out there, and there's so many ways to segment customers. And so I don't know, I've said too much, but yeah, I think I'm going to move really fast on this one. So I'm hoping May.
Nice.
Yeah. And yeah, if you guys, anything you want me to add into the book, this look, if you'd like. But yeah, I'm excited about it.
I'm
Uh,
excited.
I know we're at the end of time almost, and Rebecca had a question earlier, so I want to give her a chance to ask it.
Thanks, and I'm happy to move the conversation also into the Slack group. And I know lots of you folks, good to see you all. And by the way, Harry and I work together, so excited for him to join these calls as well. So the question I had, I started writing in chat, is thinking about who the emails are from. So I was really surprised in people's reactions. So we have account managers, we have CSMs, but we also have almost 5,000 customers. So not everyone has a CSM. So we sent it from the account managers, but the CSMs had looked at the list and taken people out who they didn't want us to email. And we got a handful, not a ton, but a handful of angry people being like, leave me alone, because they really thought it was a one-to-one communication. And so we were actually recommending, like, well, maybe we should do it more from marketing, since we're trying to share content and then have an offer like, here's something, learn about this topic. If you want like a free trial, or if you want like free access to the calculator or whatever, reach out to the account manager. So just thought it was really interesting, people's reactions to have it come from the CSM or the account manager. So that was the thing I would be curious for those who didn't respond in chat to keep that conversation going.
Rebecca, what we did is we sent the emails from marketing. We sent them to the CSMs for them to follow up. So, and we created follow-up templates for them. So it was basically up to them to decide which ones they wanted to follow up. But if they wanted to follow up, it was basically just click, customize it if you want, and then follow up on this.
And did you also, like, so we have account managers actually do the sale, like not the CSMs, or were your CSMs responsible for the
Yeah, I
revenue?
mean, it doesn't matter. In your case, just apply it to
Okay.
whatever, you know.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Rebecca, we're in the same boat because we have the AMs are responsible for like the upgrade sales. And so we create an outreach nurture sequence that they can use that's essentially automated, but it's coming from them. But then and that's more of just like getting them on the line and trying to book a call or set up a call. But then our marketing like content comes from like a marketing email nurture. But yeah, I was surprised to see some of the results that Rachel, you were putting in about having the open rates be a lot higher from CS and AMs. I guess it depends on like what's being said as well, and how you're positioning it. So yeah, we haven't worked with the CS team quite yet, but I think that's our next phase of how do we get them involved in ABM, because it's easy because AMs use, you know, they use a tool called Outreach. The CS team doesn't have access or visibility into that, and they use a very different tool. So trying to coordinate plays across the pods that they work around. So that'd be an interesting discussion to have if anyone has any experience working with both and how to differentiate the plays with both teams.
My past company, we went to sales for cross-sell. Where I'm at now, CS handles everything. We also ended up building a customer scoring and engagement model. So marketing and CS would reach out until they qualified, and then we would cut all our communication and push them to a cadence and sales loft or outreach. Today, I use Gainsight. And I write them playbooks that go along with my campaigns with email templates and follow-up sequences for the CS team. We actually just switched to Gainsight from PlanHat, so I haven't done it in Gainsight yet, but we were doing it that way in PlanHat, and we have similar capabilities in Gainsight. I just haven't done it in that tool yet. Yeah, I know we're at time, so anyone else want to jump in? If anyone can stay on.
This has been a great call. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much, Eran, for coming on and giving us your time and putting together a really great talk track and examples.
About 6 months from now, all of us come back and share how we implemented, what we learned, and what the results were.
Okay. Someone else
Put
presents.
it on, put it on the calendar. Yes, love
Thank
it.
you guys so much. Good to see you, everyone.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.